Welcome back to Star Trek Adventures Aegis. Um, for those of you just joining us here, I have a few announcements that I need to go through. First and foremost, I do want to say that for anybody that caught the stream last week, I apologize that it was in a bit of a state, but I can tell you we have flown out of the ion storm. We are no longer streaming or recording from there. So the quality, for one, should improve quite a considerable bit. We are operating we'll be temporarily operating short a player. Our chief engineer elected to go their own way for personal reasons, and I wish them the best personally. And I look forward to bringing on a replacement. We will hope to have stuff more for you in the next session. But until then, I think that is enough from me.
Although
So,
we're also down one navigation officer
yes,
today.
yes, we are. And I think now is the time to bring back my long-standing policy of uh, penalties as pertains to absent players. Um, I am for the group knows I am a kind GM, very generally speaking. However, I do not like not being notified of absent attendance. So, since our adventure is starting properly, I am taking threat. I generally take one threat per player. Um, for absent players, I'm going to add one bonus threat for each of them, which only really counts for the one player who should be here. That hopefully they will join us in the session. Anyway, um, yes, nine, almost breaking double digits on the threat now. Well, let's quickly recap, and then we can get back to the session. So, when we first left off, the starship Aegis, pictured here, was in dry dock, about to depart on its maiden voyage. Uh, she carried aboard her crew, led by Captain Anthony Barton, a human and relatively new captain for Starfleet, but nonetheless very much the consummate professional. We had Lieutenant Commander Kiran Patel, an older academic turned chief science officer. Dr. Ben Lambeth, our medical officer and slightly scrawnier gentleman. Lieutenant Eula Shira, the Andorian military attaché and the ship's armory officer. And then finally, a Ryson helm officer and aficionado for all things tacky and touristy, Chorus Tackley. The crew, by varying means, were either already on board the ship or in the process of boarding it when we joined them, and everyone had a chance to meet, including brief encounters with a few key figures: Admiral Forrest, Commander Shran, and yes, generally got settled in. Shortly afterwards, they departed to the edge of the solar system, where they conducted a basic test of the ship's systems, the chiefly propulsion, engines, yeah, engines, sensors, and defensive systems, all to great success. However, over the course of the mission, there was a bit of disquieting news emerging from Alpha Centauri. It started with complete loss of contact with the Proxima colony, the largest human world outside of Earth, and when it did resume, after they'd finished their tests, the colony's Earth-appointed governor began laying out grievances and all but explicitly stated that Alpha Centauri is declaring independence, and that they were not doing it alone. And so, as a secondary feed broadcasts some of the recorded images from over New Samarkand, we see a relatively peaceful look at the capital, the section of the city that is by far the most built up. Um, and as the uh, as the governor speaks and rails against Earth, um, he indicates that there are indeed allies that they might have, and in this moment, as cameras pan upwards, the one overlooking the Capitol grounds shows dozens and dozens of shuttlecraft descending from the skies, some immediately touching down into like onto the Capitol grounds, and from them spilling out uh, dozens more officers. They appear to be slightly shorter than the humans that are about the area, but with fairly tall grayish helmets with a domed opaque visor sloping basically from the front, and glossy black uniforms broken up by grayish squares outlined by red. Um, they were all fairly well armed with what appear to be some sort of particle rifles and sidearms of their own. One of them, going up to the podium with the governor, does meet. He only has the sidearm present, and as he reaches the platform, he removes his helmet to stand alongside Governor Slocum. And when he does, the face that you see is a wizened, older figure, and one that some of you will recognize immediately, but not necessarily all. But it is somebody who he has referred to, whom the governor has referred to as Admiral Clochon. And this is where we will continue from here. Um, with Admiral Clochon's assurances, Alpha Centauri shall be victorious. We shall be able to guarantee our independence against the intrusions of Earth, and we shall have freedom from their tyranny. Admiral Clochon, if you have words, by all means say them now. Clochon steps forward. The wrinkles in his uniform betray a very slight bit of paunch to him. I offer my fleet's protection for your people. He just steps back, and the governor kind of was expecting a little more, and there's a bit of silence. Some intermittent clapping can be picked up on the mics on the transmission. Um, but yes, from here, the governor just begins launching into various platitudes. And at this stage, I think this is where we center onto the bridge, where you are watching this situation play out. And Ensign Crichton, the current comms officer on staff, turns to you, Captain. Sir, we're getting a priority one message from command. They're requesting our status in terms of warp capability and tactical readiness.
Is it a hail or is it a request for a status update?
I think it's a status update, but I'd imagine if depending on what we say, then well, they'll probably be talking to us shortly. But that's just me. I'm sorry. This is a stressful situation, sir.
I understand. Tell them our shakedown cruise has gone successfully. Let them know that warp engines and tactical systems are available and ready.
Will do. Um, so as the speech nears its end after some uncomfortable minutes of broadcast, the governor of Alpha Centauri continues on. We do not seek war with Earth, but we do call on them to acknowledge our our new status, and we beseech them to consider not to use force, for they shall be met in kind. There should be no bloodshed today, or any other day, be it among our fellow humans or among our allies. So we urge Earth to accept this peacefully. And with that, the line from Alpha Centauri will cut out. So a few hours are going, well, more like a couple hours are going to elapse here. I'm going to ask, is there anything that you aboard the Aegis would want to do in the meantime?
So we're still in the solar system, right? Or are we at Alpha Centauri? I forget exactly where we left that part.
So the Aegis was in the still in Sol. You were in the very outskirts of it, essentially, by the Oort cloud, essentially a field of debris that loosely surrounds the solar system. You might find a few planetoids, or as they're designated in the present day, dwarf planets. You were slated here very specifically because it was very out of the way for the weapons testing that you were going to do. Or rather, that you did.
I've got something. I'd like to review how the weapons performed in a bit of detail. Just to see if there's anything that can be done to improve efficiency and that reload times, that kind of thing.
Okay. I suppose we can make this a roll, and this is also a good reminder. If Artem, if you would care to drop just a couple of those momentum, as we are starting our next episode here, and the count technically should go down between sessions. I will only ask for 2, however. So you still have a pool, and you can potentially earn that back. So if you want to roll for to assess weapons efficiency, I'm going to call that reason plus security, and I'm going to say that that can be assisted by the ship as well, with a roll of weapons and actually no computers and security. That would better assess the logs. I'm going to set the difficulty of this roll to 2.
Okay. Yeah, my focus in shipboard tactical systems, I think, applies with this.
That would definitely apply.
Okay, right. Oh, there we go. Oh god, my reasons is almost the same as my security.
Indeed, indeed.
You can tell why I didn't spend any character points.
Yes, the dump stats. But the ship helps.
Ship rolled 2 successes. There
Yep.
we go. Boom.
Well done, Aegis.
Yep. And so you get that momentum right back.
Awesome.
There we go. So 2 momentum awarded there. As this is going, first, as discussed with everybody in the group beforehand, I am dropping 2 of those threats for a slight lampshade. So first, you may, Sherry, you may of course report that you think that there is a way to improve the reload speeds on the torpedoes. A few modifications based on some techniques that torpedo bays in the Kumari class vessels use, and like just a few small tricks of the trade that may not make much difference in it may not make much difference in a major firefight. Oop, the rolls are not showing on stream. That's no good. There. In essence, you think that you have a way to improve reloads by about, say, 0.5%.
Well, it's something.
Indeed.
I'll have the armory teams do a few practices as well.
Indeed.
Never get in too much practice.
Indeed. As you continue there, the Ensign Crichton actually speaks up as well. Sure, Captain, I am puzzled about one item though.
Go ahead, Mr. Creighton.
I I don't believe I'd heard this tactical alert thing before. I could have sworn that the latest updates were referring to oh geez, what was it? And he pulls up what is a handout in everybody's form now that they should be able to see. The updated alert protocols. Oh no, not yet actually. Now you should be able to see it. They were going with a sort of, it was like a color-coded system, so I think the proper nomenclature was action stations perhaps, and that we stand at green as we are right now. Then they go into progressively warmer colors, so we go to yellow and then to red, and uh, I do understand it was recent. They had to change some of the light bulbs in order to make it work, but um,
Perfect.
I just I don't want to speak out of turn, Captain. I just thought I should uh, double check with you or
Thank you
make
for
sure.
letting me know, Mr. Creighton. I am used to the old tactical condition.
Crichton,
Please, by all means, for the new handout to all of the crew, make sure they're made aware of the new nomenclature, as it were.
Crichton will do exactly that. And he still looks very puzzled by the situation. But there's some well, yeah, he just looks exceedingly puzzled by the situation.
By the protocol update, or just the situation with the Alpha Centaurians?
He has seemed a little out of sorts since the transmission from Alpha Centauri came. But he seems more specifically puzzled, perhaps by the recent conversation on the alert status.
Okay.
Is there anything else you would want to do on anyone on the bridge would want to do right now, just to check?
I think I'm gonna. And this is like not even a thing that requires a roll or anything, but I'm gonna like swivel around in my chair and turn to my console and just pull up like basically the report on the Proxima colony that you have in the handouts, just so
Fair
that my
enough.
character has read that.
Indeed, indeed. Otherwise, I would also like to check in on our one officer not on the bridge. Dr. Lambeth, what are you up to right now?
I guess I've probably heard, like, I've seen the broadcast and stuff, so I know that, and I know where we're going, that we are heading in that direction. So, in that case, yeah, I guess I'm just going over everything because I've still only recently arrived, making sure that medbay is in full proper condition, that I know where everything is, in case there is some action. Just sorting everything really, and
Yep.
getting familiarized with it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Since I know that at least one of our supporting characters is up and running as far as the medical situation, would you like to have a scene down in sickbay as well?
I can do. Not sure what the scene would be, but I'm happy to do that.
That would depend, I believe. Craig, that you had Nurse Marple here. Would you like a chance to
Yes.
activate her?
Sure, yeah.
All right. So
That sounds ominous. The way you said activate her. Like.
Oh, that is the nomenclature. So a word for anyone new to the system. When it comes to Star Trek Adventures, there are essentially secondary characters, referred to as supporting characters. They allow you the opportunity to essentially. They allow players to stay involved in a plot when it wouldn't necessarily make sense for their characters to be there. I know that this is Star Trek, so I'm perfectly willing to hand wave the idea that a character is going to show up. Well, rather, in a way, mission is composed but with whichever cast members happen to be there or want to be on scene. So, whether the logic makes sense or not. The wizards over at Modifius are, however, nice enough to give us a secondary character option where essentially they have slightly lower stats, but could have a division that might be more appropriate to a task that you want to do. Um, and that over time, as you bring them into play, they are considered activated, and with each activation, they are allowed to be built upon, given um, talents, focuses, values, important things that help flesh out the character. They can also be given bonus points here. Or rather, bonuses to they can have their attributes or disciplines boosted. So over time, a supporting character will become a something closer, at least, to a fully fledged character, if that makes any sense. Um, So let us cut down to sickbay. Doctor, you've been getting used to the med bay setup. A it is a good deal nicer probably than most of the places you have had to work before. Certainly any clinics that were colony bound previously would not have been as well stocked. There are vast arrays of medical machinery, a lot of them bearing the imprint of the Caladrius Medical Corporation, which bears essentially the symbol of a small whitish bird, um, and a dizzying array of medical equipment, like compounds, and a reasonably sized staff for a crew of some 180 people. At present, though, there are probably a couple others around who've been listening with you. Among them, your head nurse here.
Okay, well, I'll just be, yeah, I guess scoping things out. Right, okay. I guess so. It looks like that's sorted. The standard medicines in this cabinet. Yep, hyperspace and other stuff over there. Let's go and right. That's the main checklist covered. I should probably do introductions now. You are head nurse, right? I haven't completely messed that up.
You're
I'm
you're
not
right.
used to reading.
I'm head nurse Jane Marple.
Right, Marple. Good. Okay. Yeah, I'm Dr. Lambeth. Hi. I
Yes,
guess
yes.
you.
I've just been sat here while you've
Yeah.
been doing your yes.
Yeah. Sorry, that was a little awkward. Let's see. So, you like first because this is a new experience for me, being on a ship like this and being in a kind of command position. Have you got experience with Starfleet before, or?
Yes, I've been in there for a few years. So I've graduated to head nurse now of this ship.
Well, I hope you don't mind having a comparative rookie as CMO.
I've worked with doctors of all levels of experience, and
That's good. That's good to hear. Hopefully, you won't mind pointing some things out if I need a little help. Though I guess that's kind
I
of your job.
will make sure I do that. Yes.
Yeah, thanks. So, you hear about this? You think we're going to see some action anytime soon? What with all the Alpha Centauri news? That kind of thing. I
hope
don't pay
not.
much attention to politics. I'm guessing that kind of thing doesn't happen all that often.
I don't. Well, I hope not. I mean, I guess I suppose we might get asked to transport some Makos there, or a diplomatic delegation, or as long as no one gets blown up.
Yeah, well, that's the hope.
If I'm bored on this trip, that's a good thing.
Oh yeah. You don't need to tell me. Ugh. I have had some very interesting journeys in my life, and I wish I had had fewer of them.
What interesting journeys have you had?
Too many to count, probably.
Mhm.
A lot of them involved surgery, mostly on myself, often on myself, not always.
On
I've been in a
yourself?
few scrapes in my
Oh.
time. I've probably got a better knowledge of my own internal organs than I have of anyone else's, just by looking at them a fair bit. But yeah, not gonna. You don't need any specifics. I've been around all over the place. I'm from Vega originally, but again, last few years I've just been popping all over the place, and there's some rough parts in this galaxy.
So I've heard.
Yeah, you been off world much? Like you from Earth?
Yes. From Norwich in England.
Oh,
But yes, really, I've only been doing system patrolling. Once got lucky enough to be on a ship going to Vulcan.
oh yeah. What those those are logicy blokes, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, they're the ones who have rods shoved up their rear ends.
yeah, that's the way I was going to put it,
But you're in a position of command and need to be
yeah,
more
I figure I
diplomatic.
should probably be using my language more delicately and all that.
As head nurse, I don't have
I
to worry
don't know
about
what
that.
the ship's policy is on calling people arseholes and such.
I think Starfleet generally frowns upon it.
Yeah, I figured that might be the case. Oh,
It is at this point I think a small interrupt is useful as a engineer with the red stripes of the operations division comes in, clutching his arm. What an asshole that friggin' barnyard owl is. Oh, uh, sorry. Who's the doc around here?
that'll be me. What seems to be the problem?
Well, we were trying to bring the ship up to readiness for the combat drill, the combat drill portion, and then we got the transmission. We heard that transmission broadcast over the intercom about Alpha Centauri, and the word sprang quickly. So we tried to wake the commander, who was hibernating, upside down, over the warp core. Um, that still doesn't stop sounding strange to me. Anyway, um, kind of reflexively scratched me here, and he like moves a cloth that he was holding on his
Oh,
hand to show you his
bloody
arm, and yeah,
hell. Okay, let's
it,
take a look at that. Have you? That seems like the kind of thing that's worth reporting to a superior, though I guess he is your superior, so
I mean, he's
that'll
also
work.
still asleep as far as we can tell. That said something about
Huh.
needing to hibernate before this, so I don't know what's going on there.
Well, I guess don't wake up the owl. I'll bear that in mind.
Uh,
Right, let's check, shall we?
Alright, and he'll show you his arm. And Craig, since this is your character snapping into action, you may either assign one point in a discipline, 1 point to an attribute, or you may add a talent value or focus. I'll presume this is more an assist at this point, but without needing you don't really need much in terms of insight or reason to assess the nature of the injury to both of you. This is pretty straightforward, like talon marks left in this man's arm. Um, and who did we lose? Who did we lose? It was Artem.
The captain's gone.
Oh no.
The captain's abandoned ship.
Oh, the captain's back.
Oh,
Oh, good. Anyway,
There's been some extra dimensional weirdness.
it's a pretty straightforward look as far as the damage to this gentleman's arm. So I'll just say it's a simple control and medicine roll to administer some first aid here, since this man is not in a life-threatening situation.
Okay. Focuses for like emergency medicine wouldn't come under here because I guess it's not all that life-threatening.
Indeed
So
not.
just
And that is 2 successes. And
from Miss Marple, Nurse Marple.
okay, so I believe that should succeed though. So you will be able to grab the your first inclination. Would it be for like the would it be for like a medical grade stapler or a sewing needle and like the medical grade stitches, or does he think to try the dermal regenerator first?
yeah, I think first instinct is probably like, right, okay, let's quickly like slap a bandage on sort of thing. Like take probably like stitches and stuff. But then obviously he's got to now realizing that he's actually got a fully stocked medical bay. He'll stop himself just before he applies some um, incredibly crude treatment, and like go find something a bit more high tech, like a dermal regenerator, and give that a shot.
All right. And yep, with that, you're able to sterilize the wound and regrow the bits of skin there. It's like, well, better than grabbing the duct tape, which that stuff's easy enough to find, but it's a precious commodity on a starship. Do let me know if you ever need anything, Doctor, yourself. Sorry, I haven't introduced myself, or I don't think I had the chance before you came on board. I'm Chief Fernier. I'm the ship's quartermaster.
All right, Chief. Good to meet you, Dr. Lambeth, over here, and this is Nurse Marple.
All right.
Welcome to sick bay.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you're the first patient.
Oh, well, I'll take the distinction. Not every day you get clawed by something out in deep space. And
Well, I hope you learn your lesson. I guess let's ask someone else to wake up the bar now next time. Huh?
he gives you a a big old grin and just says, "Yeah," rubbing his arm tenderly. "I guess I gotta go change uniforms too. Oh, now, Doc, much appreciated."
Not a problem. Just doing my job.
Yep, and he'll turn around and head on out. So, as the time goes along, within a couple hours, there is a signal back on the bridge. Ensign Crichton will report. Sir, priority channel coming in from Starfleet Command.
Put it up on the view screen.
Right. He will tap a few buttons on his console, and on visual you will get this gentleman, whom you recognize immediately as Admiral Gardner. Oh,
Am I familiar with Admiral Gardner?
you probably more by reputation, I suspect, than necessarily by personal interaction.
Okay.
I would say that you've had more personal contact, perhaps, with Admiral Forrest, who has been not simply one of the higher-ranking officers in Starfleet, but also perhaps the biggest advocate for Starfleet as an exploratory program. Gardner, whose promotion was slightly more recent, I think that it has him actually reaching the Admiralty in the very early 2150s, so possibly that year or 2151. Um, But he's been growing in rank and importance as well. He's been a key figure in terms of helping to guide integration between Mako and Starfleet. So he's probably a slightly stodgier officer as compared to what's their face, Forrest, but he's definitely somebody that you want in your corner. Captain, I understand your ship is in a good ready status right now.
That's correct, Admiral.
Oh, well, this is good. He sits back in his chair. The one moment Forrest goes off-world and a crisis lands on my desk. And I hate to say it, but it also lands in front of your chair as well, Captain. Fortunately, the Aegis is currently the fastest, best armed, and most well-crewed vessel we have in range. Enterprise and other faster ships are mostly further out in deep space beyond where we could recall them quickly enough. We do have a considerable number of the refitted Marshall-class vessels, but they're presently out on combat maneuvers around Wolf 359, a training exercise of their own to get these Makos more used to how we do things. Suffice to say that they'll be following shortly as soon as all the orders can be distributed. The only other ships we have here are in the defense fleet, and after the Zindi crisis, we're a little bit concerned about this. We don't even fully know what these. He looks over a pad. Tellarites. That we don't know a whole lot about these Tellarites that we're dealing with here. So, Captain, I've orders from the Prime Minister himself. You are to proceed to the Alpha Centauri system. Your mission directives are to assess the strength of the Tellarites and the Centauris. If nothing else, we need an idea of what we're dealing with before we go into any bigger engagement. If you can, attempt a negotiation with the Tellarites. We need to see if we can arrange for a peaceful settlement and get them off of an Earth world, and that way we can handle the colony a little more easily. Avoid conflict if at all possible, but if you engage, or if you have to defend yourselves, you are authorized to fire as needed. And presuming you're successful there, and if you have the forces to do so, if you have the opportunity, we're ordering you to use all necessary force to place Governor Slocum and any supporting officials with Alpha Centauri under arrest.
With respect, Admiral, has Governor Slocum broken any laws?
Governor Slocum is declaring independence of an Earth colony, something that none of them have any right to do. That's a significant breach in and of itself. We're, at this point, considering the colony an open rebellion. At least that's all we can do without more information. We don't know the actual disposition of the colonial militia or anything else there.
Understood. Given the Tellarite support of Governor Slocum, are we to consider them hostiles as well?
Tellarites are a bit of an unknown. Command doesn't honestly know that much about them. Frankly, we were actually about to send a formal diplomatic contact mission their way. We understand from some of our other contacts with the Vulcans and Andorians that they are one of the major regional players, but that's about all we knew. We thought that maybe we could eventually broker some sort of favorable relations with them, but, well, here they are. We don't know what to make of this move, and we haven't had any contact with their government yet. If it's at all possible that this is a bluff, or that we can convince these Tellarites otherwise, they may not know what they've gotten into, then maybe, just maybe, they can leave. But I'll once again reinforce that you should avoid engagement if possible. we don't want to make this a larger interstellar incident than it already is.
Understood, Admiral.
I will send along updates as we have them. At present, though, it looks like the nearest friendly vessels aren't going to be able to join you for a few days. We have made a formal request to the Vulcan government as well to lend some assistance in this matter, as this is an aggressive act, and well, we're still nominally allies at least, even if they've suspended joint operations. Hopefully, they'd be willing to take some action. But until then, you are on your own, Captain. Oh.
Understood.
Is there anything else that you wish to ask while you have the Admiral directly on the line? And I will say, if the group wishes to pose some questions in meta that can be relayed through the captain, then you can do that. Otherwise, this might be a prime moment for a meeting of sorts, a briefing, if you will. Hearing none, I'm going to say.
Do we have is there a biography, a psych report for Governor Slocum available?
That would be available, and I'm actually going to. I will provide you a little bit of that. Let's see here.
Like just any clue, like his motivations, his reasoning, how he thinks,
Yep.
why he's doing this, essentially.
Yeah.
Also, why he was chosen for the job of governor. I mean, he must be Earth's puppet. Then for suddenly the puppet to get its own strings and go rogue is a bit weird.
Indeed. So let me just go back and review here. Would you like to pose that question directly to the Admiral, or would you prefer it be relayed by other means? Thinking is, I may have Crichton be able to relay some of this to you. This is purely for flavoring.
For the biography?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I probably wouldn't have to ask Admiral Gardner directly for that. It's probably something available from Starfleet's databanks. I was planning on reading that in my ready room. Do I have a ready room?
You do have a ready room. Let's see if we can
Fantastic.
get that set on the, well, oh, I need to set up something with that particular set. We'll get to that shortly, but yes, first and foremost, I do want to outline the orders that you have now. So you have very specifically a set of mission directives, and just let me make that handout visible. Now, for anyone new to the system, again, directives have a special importance. They're obviously the fundamental, they are the mission parameters by which your crew is to operate for the duration of an adventure. They have a few benefits with it, like having explicitly declared mission directives. One is that they can actually be used to invoke determination, or rather, they can give you points of determination should you choose to invoke them, which that basically has a number of uses, among them automatic critical successes, and like re-rolls of a dice pool, things of that nature. So it can be extremely useful in a difficult situation. They do also, after adventures, they are part of what informs where your reputation goes. So we're going to say that I'm going to go ahead and show this to everyone. So these are directives that you can invoke at your discretion when, should it come up for purposes of determination, and this is just primary objectives here. So, with all that said, Captain, you at least are going to be reviewing the information. Would you prefer to get underway beforehand? Do you wish to discuss this with the crew, or
Well, we've been ordered to proceed to Alpha Centauri, right?
yep, you have the formal orders now.
Okay. Well, since we've been ordered to go there, it's probably best if we get underway as soon as possible. So I'm going to direct Lieutenant Tackley to land a course for Alpha Centauri and engage in maximum warp.
He will wordlessly do so, engaging the ship's warp engines, and you will be set to arrive there at the speed of plot.
At the speed of plot. Excellent.
Yep. So, let's see. I will ask, first and foremost, do you wish to review any of this on your own, or would you like to have a chance to discuss the current mission with your crew at this point?
Do I have like a briefing room or an observation lounge or like anything that might work as, a meeting room
We
for my crew and I?
we have exactly that. You launched after Tuesday, so the briefing room was installed.
Excellent. Okay, I'm gonna tap a button on my chair for a shipwide broadcast and say all senior staff report to the briefing room, please.
All right. And so that shall come to pass for the most part, which I will have and move most of them there. That is the incorrect room. That is the
This
officer's
looks like the mess hall.
Oh, sir, we
that is
seem
the
to have
mess
gone to the mess hall by accident.
Whoopsie doopsie. Transporter room. Get us to the briefing. Get us to the briefing room immediately. There we go.
Oh, I'm sorry. I seem to have given you the wrong direction, sir.
Goodness gracious, is that to Paul?
That is to Paul, and Gardner's on the screen. Everybody's here except for the chief engineer.
Is that a copy machine in the left side?
Yes, it is.
Is it a cop? Oh my god, I love it. I've using this map for 4 years and I've never noticed it.
The screens are all running Linux.
Oh. Truly, this is an obsolete piece of equipment.
Okay, so I'm probably going to enter the briefing room with Governor Slocum's biography on a pad or something.
Indeed. I will ask you to give me a reason I think I'm going to say insight plus command. And I'm going to call this a difficulty of 4.
Difficulty of 4. Goodness gracious.
Yes.
Okay, I have a I am looking for like insight on him insofar as like determining like, okay, what are this guy's motivations? What does he want? He's in a position of authority and is attempting to exercise it to his own personal ends. And to that, I have a focus in diplomacy. Would you consider that to be applicable in this particular case?
I would.
Okay. Cool. So focus used and task roll. So it's initially 2 dice, yes?
It is initially 2 dice. You may, of
Okay.
course, spend momentum in order to buy additional dice. That's 1
Right.
for 1 bonus. Total of 3.
I do let me check what the crisis management talent does.
Okay.
I want to see if crisis management would be applicable in this particular case. I have a big old spreadsheet. Here we go.
Go ahead
Okay,
and
that
read
lets
out.
me that lets me use the direct task twice, so that's not useful. Okay, in that case,
Yeah.
I'm going to burn difficulty 4. Well, this is probably going to be super useful. So I'm gonna burn all the momentum that I have to get 3 additional dice.
What I like to hear.
And yeah, then I'll do my task roll with my applicable focus, insight, command. Okay, cool. Roll.
One.
Okay.
By
That is
momentum.
4 successes, GM.
That right there is 4 successes, so that is more than enough to read in not just to this man's biography, but to his psyche, into the depths of his mind. So some of this is being also relayed to the rest of the crew, essentially as we go. Crichton is reviewing the some of the basics of the guy's biography. Yes, sirs. Governor Christopher Slocum was formerly actually a politician, a senator in the United Earth Government's Parliament. He was kind of a bit of a backbencher, I suppose they refer to it. He was part of the. He was a pretty decent part of Prime Minister Samuel's last campaign, actually. Or rather his first one, back during their first term when they came to power in the late 2140s. Um, he was appointed shortly after the Samuels administration came to power as governor of Alpha Centauri. Still a bit of an unstable time after the earlier unpleasantries, but he's been a fairly capable manager for most of those years, although it was sometime about 2 years ago there was a local journalist that broke a story suggesting that he was maybe mishandling some of the revenue from there that he was collecting. He's also just generally. There have been some suggestions he isn't terribly popular just by virtue of being an Earth governor, so that's kind of what's it. That seems to be what's going on for him. Crichton is trying to stumble through this situation, but you can very clearly tell Captain that he's a bit off. Some of his words definitely ring true, particularly that it would seem Slocum is very much a politician who had tried to. It seems as though he tried to play a bit of a gambit in terms of getting a good position, and that he received the equivalent of reassignment to Antarctica, or the least pleasant base of that was still of some prominence, I suppose. And while he had a decent record to start with, there have been recent allegations that that Governor Slocum may have mishandled some funds and using it for his own lavish purposes. He's also been trying to build up something of a political base there, but to greatly mixed success because Alpha Centaurians are just not crazy about the idea of any Earth politician. Bearing in mind notes of their recent history, Alpha Centauri was founded as an independent colony, but United Earth had asserted its control over the colony way back in the late 21 teens. They had very nearly started an independence movement they'd started a movement in the back in the 30s that had it started building steam, and in 2142 there had been there'd been large-scale protests that eventually escalated into full-scale violence after the last governor deployed colonial forces against them. Um, the Makos had put a lid on that some years back, but it's still a pretty messy situation. So independence might be a popular position, but Slocum, definitely some question marks there.
Slocum is supporting the idea of independence, but the question marks are as to why.
Well, it since you succeeded at the task, I could say that there are a number of possibilities. On one hand, perhaps Slocum honestly believes that it's time for Alpha Centauri to be independent and that he's earnestly adopted the cause. I suppose one might say gone native, but that's your mileage may vary on the phrasing there. There's, of course, a more cynical interpretation, specifically that Slocum is in a very difficult political bind, and in all likelihood, his days, as the corruption persists, his days as the appointed governor might be numbered, to the extent that it becomes a liability for the Samuels government, and they don't want to provoke another uprising. So this could be a cynical play to get the people of Alpha Centauri behind him and to ensure that he has his fief.
Could it also be the case where he's actually not that popular and he's bringing in a foreign army to stay in power in some way?
That is just as plausible. And I think at this point, I would like to turn it actually to everyone discussing in character what they think could be going on and what is like how you wish to proceed from here. Um,
Okay. After Mr. Creighton's report on Governor Slocum, I would open the table to essentially with so what do we think the reason Governor Slocum's motivations are for doing this?
If he's been insulating his own bed with funds, perhaps perhaps it's his motives financial.
That's certainly an option. Um,
It also kind of links into what the Tellarites tend to do. I don't know how many of you know much about Tellarites. They tend to be they're not really expansionists in like terms of territory, but they tend to go in for business opportunities, and the military tends to go in for business opportunities. So they could potentially be hired as mercenaries, or perhaps they're there to perhaps they've been offered pickings of Alpha Centauri's mineral wealth.
Speaking of, what do we know about Alpha Centauri as a economic entity? What imports, exports, uh, what is it they do? What kind of do they manufacture rubber ducks in their factories? What's going on?
A quick question for the GM: can we assume that the contents of the handout are things that our characters already know
yes.
about Alpha Centauri? Okay. Patel looks at his data pad and sort of scrolls down to the bottom, and mentions. So as with a lot of colonies in Earth's history, this one seems to be mostly focused on resource extraction. However, there is a very substantial research sector as well. In terms of extraction, seems to be mainly mining, duranium, deuterium, fuel, and a small shipbuilding industry.
Duranium and deuterium are things every spacefaring civilization needs to build and power their starships. Lieutenant Shearer, what do you know about the Tellarite's technological bases?
Technologically, they're roughly in line with our own, well, Andorian, a bit more advanced than humans.
Understood.
But
So, do you think the our research sector on Alpha Centauri would really be of any use to them?
not unless they've made some interesting breakthrough discovery. I'm thinking they're more likely to be interested in getting their fingers into the duranium mining and deuterium production.
So one of my characters' things is geology. Is there any way that I can or any sense in rolling to get more info about specifically the stuff that they're mining, or anything that maybe the official report would gloss over in terms of value of something?
Hmm. Um. Well, I could ask you for I will call this an insight, and I would say, I would say science, but like there's limits to how I think that would apply. Command would actually probably be more applicable to understand the strategic connotation. So I'm going to say insight and command, and I'm going to add a difficulty of 1 here, or just set the
Okay.
difficulty to 1.
And I can use the focus for
Yeah,
geology.
yes, absolutely. All right, and with that, that will earn you 2 momentum back.
Woohoo!
So, what you will know offhand would be that duranium is obviously a crucial resource for shipbuilding. In particular, Starfleet has been very desperate for that as they attempt to build up the fleet. Alpha Centauri does have fairly excellent deposits, which are helping with the quick ramp up. But really, every starship uses an alloy that includes duranium to insulate their hulls, essentially, or it's part of the alloy composite that makes up the outer hulls and provides pretty effective defense against most spaceborne hazards.
So, Captain, it looks like it's not just a case of Centauri having substantial mineral deposits, but it's also something that would definitely harm Starfleet in the future if we were to lose access to this uranium.
Or maybe there's your motive. But if Starfleet's going to take a loss by losing this uranium, that's plenty of reason for anyone to try and get a hold of it.
If that were
That tracks. If anyone were to assert control over that, their gain would be a loss. I don't know if the intent is particularly malicious there. Lieutenant Shira, I suppose, is our resident expert on the Tellarites. You mentioned that they're not a particularly militaristic or expansionist species. Um,
Well, they have their military to protect their trading vessels, and they have been known to hire themselves out as mercenaries. But they probably wouldn't seek to conquer Alpha Centauri. They'd be happy with a friendly government who gives them lots of beneficial arrangements.
Understood.
Captain, I think for whatever reason, my gut instinct, and I'm no politician, I'm just a scientist, is telling me that there's something happening with this governor. The Tellarites, from everything that we know, and from my scientific contacts, I don't work with any of them directly, but you hear things about other species, and I just don't get the feeling that they would want to mount what amounts to an invasion of our space. They have no particular animosity to us, as far as I know.
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't think the Tellarites are the problem here. They're just like, hard thugs or whatever.
However, it could also be the case that this movement doesn't enjoy the support of the Centauri people either, since Governor Slocum wasn't exactly democratically elected by the colony.
It might be worth talking to local politicians there. See what
Regional
they think
magistrates,
of
things
the
like that.
involved.
I mean, all just local folks. They've probably got a better grasp of the situation than the politicians have, to be honest.
That's an excellent idea. If we position ourselves in orbit without making any aggressive moves, I can't see why Governor Slocum would bar our entry to the planet's surface. See if they'd be willing to talk to us. They may be resistant at first, given that we are representatives of Earth, but it's possible we might be able to get through to a few of them.
Oh, that would certainly be worth a try. I can unfortunately say that most comm lines do seem to still be jammed, but without getting closer, we're not going to have a full idea of what exactly we're dealing with or what jamming there is. I don't think I could break through that, certainly at this distance.
You think you could break through the jamming?
Well, if we were in the system and if we managed to get to orbit, then I think that I could probably break through, Captain. We do have some pretty competent staff on the communications wing of the crew as well, so I could start talking with them as well. And well, that's what we linguists are good at, that and math.
Begin working on that, Mr. Crichton. Commander Patel, does the planet have any moons?
Would that be on the report? Does the planet have moons?
I don't believe I have it listed, and I don't recall seeing anything. Let's do a quick.
The point, what I'm attempting to get at here is that it's probably a better idea to at first drop out of warp behind one of the moons, to perhaps like monitor comm traffic at first without immediately giving away our presence.
Indeed, that would be sensible. Let me take just a quick look here. So
I
the
think
planet does indeed
I
have
think
2 moons, listed as Nikos and Theron.
okay. Probably be best to drop out of warp behind the most distant, break through, cut through the jamming, collect as much information as possible, and then from there make a move.
Yeah. I mean, I like the sound of that. You don't want to go into these kind of things half-cocked. You need to know what you're dealing with.
I will. I'll go to the comm panel and direct the helm officer currently there since Lieutenant Tackley is with us in the briefing room. I'll direct him to adjust course to the most distant of the 2 moons and have us drop out of warp then, and
Okay.
to do our best to avoid detection.
Okay.
Do we have a silent running mode?
There would probably be a stealthier mode which you could engage. The it would I suspect it would actually be an engineering related task in order to properly run this, which you do notice, Captain. No, the operations department, or very specifically the engineering department, did not send a representative to the staff meeting.
That's vaguely concerning.
Oh yeah. I don't know if you've heard, Captain. Like, if we are we concluding this thing? Have we got any more tactical stuff to talk about? Because there's probably something I should bring up
Go ahead, Dr. Lambeth.
relating to the absence of a certain member of staff.
Go ahead, Dr. Lambeth.
Yeah, no, it's just the the I can't recall his name off the top of my head. The chief engineer.
Commander Via N.
Yes, Vian. Yeah, there was an incident involving one of the engineers in his service where he tried to wake him up from hibernation and may have been sort of accidentally injured a bit.
Injured how?
Just like a scratch from the talons of VN.
I see.
Mm.
Uh,
So I
w-
think if he's not here, it's probably because he's still hibernating, and it's probably not a good idea to try and interrupt him.
Understood. In the future, we'll probably ask him to hibernate in his quarters, for the safety of the crew, so it would seem. Very well. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I will speak with Commander Via N when he wakes.
Yeah, I'd wait till he's awake if I were you.
I appreciate the recommendation. I'll keep that in mind.
Okay. Well, are there other
Okay.
things that you would like to discuss here in the whilst in the meeting room?
I suppose while we're en route, Commander Patel, if you would assist the comms team with cutting through with finding a way to cut through the jamming surrounding Alpha Centauri. Lieutenant Shira and Dr. Lambeth, try to see what data you can pull together on these Tellarites. Physiology, like physiology, their culture, anything about their technology, just anything you can find.
Yes, sir.
Understood.
I will bang my gavel and adjourn the meeting.
Spectacular. You pull off your shoe, or Crichton actually provides you his shoe. You bang it on the table. Meeting adjourned.
I smash a bottle of wine against one of the bulkheads, I christen the HMS kitchen table. Godspeed. Bang. Okay. I personally will proceed to engineering to talk to them about uh lowering the emissions of the SS Aegis so that we can pass into the Centauri system as undetected as possible.
Spectacular. Will the rest of you be breaking off to or to respective or the other respective tasks? Or
Yep, I'll be going over with Crichton to the communications team to figure
Yeah.
this stuff out.
okay.
Yeah, I think we've collected as much information as we can about the governor and his possible motivations, but we need more information about the Tellarite specifically. So
Indeed.
yeah,
So
we can run over with that.
I'm going to say let's see. Artem, uh, Drone, and Craig. I'm actually going to ask you each to roll a single D20. In case any of you are unfamiliar with Roll20, you can either well, you can use the bar on the side of the screen and set that for a roll. There we go. Um, this is not strictly a requirement, but is a small bit of homebrew. Or like small house rule, I think is more appropriate. I like to ask players when we split off scenes to roll a single d20 for an initiative as far as the narrative goes. And when it comes to, since this is Star Trek Adventures, the lower roll goes first. Or we consider that more along the lines of a critical success here. So that is actually pretty solidly Captain Barton taking the highest roll, so we are going to move you down to engineering. And then we will follow that up, it looks like, with a probably back to the bridge with Patel and Crichton, and then a scene with Dr. Lambeth and Shira, location TBD. But first, let's go to the engine room here. So you begin making your way down down from the upper decks of the Aegis and to the lower areas where you can take the sort of crosswalk or go from the spherical primary hull into the secondary hull. Imagine as you take a look out of as you are going through the connection tunnel to the secondary hull, you might see out the window the streaking of stars as you are now on course for Alpha Centauri. Um, it is the first sustained bit of warp of your ship's voyage, and for everyone's entertainment at home, I certainly hope not the last. But
Well, I'll pause for a moment, looking out the window, watching the stars as they were stars and bits of interstellar dust streak by at a relative speed many times greater than that of light. Um, Take it in for a moment and then continue on my way to engineering.
yeah. And so you arrive within a couple minutes of that nice heartfelt moment you had, um, and you arrive at engineering, um, where through the hatch, the lights are a little bit lower than would be usual. It seems that some of the crew are operating fairly quietly, although a couple are starting to cluster near the aft end, where you see a hovering just above the warp core, rather some sort of mass hanging just above the warp core that is not appear mechanical in nature.
Okay. Looking at it, that's probably my chief engineer. Okay. Uh, who is the second in command of engineering in the um during the slumber of Commander Vian?
Oh. Stepping down from one of the ladders, sorry, sir, the engineer's mate's off duty. I'm Ensign Garza. I'm currently overseeing engineering.
Okay, Ensign Garza. First things first, I'd like you to post a security officer next to Via and make sure nobody disturbs him to avoid any further incidents, which Dr. Lambeth informed me of. Could I speak actually with the engineer that was injured?
Oh yeah, the quartermaster. He was down here
Oh,
for a
our
visit.
quartermaster.
Yeah,
Excellent.
he's actually right over there. Yeah. Oh, Captain. Nice to see you again. Hoping your accommodations are nice. Uh, did you did you get the bottle of Angel's Envy I sent up?
No, not yet, Chief. Um, I could probably look around and I could probably look around for a few minutes and probably find it. Are you all right, Chief?
Right as rain. Although I had to send one uniform back up to the costume department, get that stitched back up.
I see. Yeah, those talons on Via and they're sharper than they look. Suppose that's a due warning for all of us to be more careful. Anyways, I did come down here on business. We're looking for a way to mask Aegis's emissions as much as possible as we enter the Alpha Centauri system. We're looking to collect some information on the situation before revealing our presence. So, I want you to work on a way to mask our emissions as best as possible to avoid giving away our presence.
Uh, the two ops officers nod to themselves. We'll get right on it, Captain. Hmm. Thinking here, they look to the feathered mass. We'll definitely get something figured out here, sir.
Um, I do have I do imagine that the greatest source of emissions from the ship would be the ship's warp core. Yes.
Indeed, the subspace field produced by the warp drive would be pretty difficult to cover. How close in are we getting? Are we like talking the system's edge? Do we want to be on the outer star system, or are we going
The the idea was for us to mask our emissions as much as possible and then drop out of warp behind one of Alpha Centauri's moons.
both of them blink for a moment? Okay. Not impossible, but we can. So we'll definitely get to it. We might be
I'm
able
happy
to
to
if. Oh,
I'm happy to lend my own personal expertise as much as possible.
I'm
I
sh-
will say that Captain Barton does have a focus in gravimetric field displacement manifold design, um, and impulse thruster design. Uh, so he knows how to take them apart and put them back together pretty well.
hmm, a good roll here. So I think we're going to get into a very slight technobabble here. So we'll be prepared for some slight sort of interesting phrasing here. So if we want to try and conceal like the massive energy signature and the delta radiation bleed off from when we enter the system and drop out of warp, oh, that's going to mean if when we approach the system we drop to a slightly lower warp, it might be possible to uh, as we slow our acceleration curve, we might be able to cut some power and try to narrow the EM field a little bit. Combine that with a sort of diffusive subspace emission from the deflector pulse, we might be able to conceal that a little more effectively. And then, yeah, we might seem like a slight blip, but once we're out of warp, we can probably cut a good bit of power to the engines or reduce to a slightly quieter mode. Oh.
Here's an idea. The signature of the impulse thrusters is much lower than that of the warp drive, correct?
Yes, sir.
How about we drop out of warp at the edge of the system, way beyond their sensor range, probably behind a gas giant or something, an ice giant, something with a strong magnetic field to hide our sensor signature. We cut power to the warp drive entirely and go and head into the system entirely on impulse and thrusters.
Oh, That could definitely work a bit easier, Captain. Garza starts stroking her chin a little bit. Yeah, if we
If we can throw up any interference for if we can jam their sensors with our deflectors as much as possible, that could help as well.
the
We are going to leave some of the signature with the impulse thrusters, but that's going to be mostly directional as opposed to the omnidirectional subspace field created by the warp drive.
yeah, and if we create a very slight if we create a slight alternating or alternating osmotic pulse in the drive coils, then I think it would the magnetic field would just about completely hide our warp emissions, and then we can scatter the impulse plasma enough to where we should be able to move in relatively undetected. Well, definitely, as you said, Captain, want to power down some of the energy system, or well, some of the like the warp engines to lower our subspace profile. Maybe a few other systems so that we don't give off as much EM either. But that could
Right.
work, Captain.
Yeah. No, try to get power down the warp drive as much as possible because rogue asteroids don't give off subspace signatures, but they do occasionally deflect a bit of EM from fissile materials or anything like that. So with any luck, we'll just seem like a rogue asteroid deflected by some planetoid's gravity off into rogue space.
With that, Garza will nod, and I will actually I will give you the opportunity to as you give these orders. It sounds like Barton was going to take a bit of a hands-on role anyway. Would that be correct?
I would say that is correct. Yes.
Okay, then I will ask you for a control and engineering role as you help assist your the engineers.
Okay. I have focuses in warp field dynamics, impulse thruster design, and gravimetric field displacement manifold design.
All of those apply.
Okay. I'm gonna do a task roll. I think I think I won't burn any momentum. What's the difficulty for this?
So the difficulty on this task, I'm going to say, is 3 here.
3. Okay. Let's see. I have rediscover. Let's see what talents I have. Okay. So I have a talent called Spirit of Discovery, which lets me immediately spend 1 determination to add 3 points to the group momentum pool.
Okay.
The normal conditions for spending determination still apply. Let's see what else I have. Applied research and teacher.
Teacher, I think, might have something to do with supervising or assisting. Let's take
I don't see it in this huge doc I have. Hang on. I think teacher is used specifically when somebody else is making a roll. I get to add like an extra die for whatever reason.
I see. But since you are
I
taking
think
the
that's what it is.
since you are taking the primary role on this one, this would not be a case where you could do it because you will get an assist, but assist rolls are, so far as I am aware, without exception, only permitted to be done with a single D20.
Right. Okay. So, I do have my Spirit of Discovery, which allows me to use a point of determination to add 3 momentum to the group pool. Yes.
Yes, you do have. That is an option. You would either need to invoke one of your values or one of the mission directives in order to use that. I will also say you
Okay.
do have momentum in the group pool at present as well.
Right, but I do want to let others use that.
Fair
I
enough.
do have a value called follow my lead. I know what I'm doing. Would that be an appropriate value to invoke in this particular instance?
I believe so, since you're using it to guide the characters. Since this is again for those new to the system, this is a situation where there's a sort of unique a unique mechanic you can use when you really want to guarantee you're doing okay at a task. Um, your character has a certain number of values, general statements that get at the core of who your character is, um, and they, when tapped, can be used to spend a point of determination, which has a few different uses. Some of them are very specifically listed, like giving an automatic critical success or allowing rerolls of a dice pool, other elements like that. In this case, it is applying very specifically to a talent, a special ability that the captain has. So, with that, you do get
So
a. Go
so
ahead.
I can use it to get one critical success. So 2 successes on any task. I can use it to add 3 points of momentum to the group pool just immediately. Or what was the other thing I could do with it?
Um, so the full list of options would be that you may. The full list of options would be that you, in addition to what your Spirit of Discovery talent allows you to do, which is the
Oh,
3 points of momentum, you in general have the ability to use your determination to either A, um, buy essentially one critical success that is just automatically added to your pool. You have the moment of inspiration where you can re-roll your dice as needed, or rather re-roll all the dice in your dice pool, which I believe recently was extended to count to rolls that the ship does or anyone assisting you. There's a surge of activity where you can perform another task immediately after completing another task. That's more if we are in combat or something
right.
where initiative matters. And then there is just a basic you can create an advantage relevant to the scene.
Relevant to the scene. Okay.
Yeah,
Um.
it's just a free you get this at the cost of a point of determination.
Okay. And everyone has 1 point of determination, right?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. 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 Okay. In that case, I will use my Spirit of Discovery to add 3 points of momentum to the group pool, and I also get to add a critical success.
Uh, I think that since you're using Spirit of Discovery, it would be you would have to choose between the two.
Okay. Um, I think I'll do the critical success actually.
Okay, so automatically 2 successes, and then you may
Okay.
roll Control plus Engineering.
Okay. And I won't use any momentum.
Okay.
Let me. Okay, that blows. Does the ship get to roll as well?
Um, so the ship, I think I could technically accept that roll. Additionally, you do have an NPC currently helping you, so
Okay.
we will see what she rolls. Since you invoke determination there as well, you did also generally, in order to receive the successes from an assist, you need the help of, or you need to succeed at a task yourself. The critical success that you bought with your determination does mean that you get access to that still. So I will
Okay.
say, yes, Ensign Garza is able to help for one, and
Okay.
I will be generous. I will have the ship add its engineering and engines for anyone that wants to roll.
Speak now or forever hold your peace. I can roll it. I'll just roll it. Okay. And ooh, there we go. Boom, 2.
All right,
Good thing you rolled it, yeah.
There we go.
that'll net
Okay, 2
you
successes from the ship.
that will net you another 2 momentum, which I'm just gonna go ahead and give to our science officer this time.
Very nice.
Yeah. So yeah, these next few hours, working quietly, the group of you work to bring the ship's engine profile down a little bit, reducing the subspace field. As you approach Alpha Centauri, it will probably be a good idea to cut down power emissions a little bit or like reduce speed, such that you can get such that you don't leave that much of a major profile to any ships
Yeah.
that may be in the area.
I think the idea was to drop out of warp outside Alpha Centauri's Oort cloud and then proceed into the system on impulse thrusters, hiding behind gas giants or just any planets with a particularly strong magnetic profile to mask our entry to the system as much as possible.
Okay, yeah. Uh, that'd be doable. I think that with the modifications you have here, you could probably drop in as close as the you could probably drop in as close as the gas giant. Although the outer system may be a little safer. If the Tellarites are indeed there in force, then there is the possibility that they would have some patrols or be running some sensor analyses. So I will say that depending upon your choice there, it will increase the difficulty for their ability to spot you. Um, but we will save that for a moment and go on next to uh, Lieutenant Commander Patel and Crichton, which I think it would make the most sense to have them at work on the bridge. So let me just, for the moment, I will leave Shira. We will leave you there. Although, if you wish to, if you and Dr. Lambeth wish to be present on the bridge as well, then we can follow you as you work on your own information gathering. Otherwise, we can find some other set, or even perhaps theater of the mind, that situation.
Bridge is fine for me.
Would you like a trip up to the bridge, Doctor?
Yeah, I can do. Yeah, I guess we'll go with that.
No, so you haven't made it up yet, so it's all good and great. Although that token needs to be resized. There we go. All right. So while the captain works with the engineers to ensure that the ship will have a reasonably stealthy approach, the rest of you are busily working away to try to help improve your situation. First, over at the communications panel.
So yeah, Patel's probably like standing behind Ensign Crichton at the comms console, trying to like give little pointers, like, hey, try to rotate the gain frequency and the beeps and the boops. I don't know. I'm bad at technobabble.
No, no.
Do the science thing to maybe see if we can punch through these sensors a little bit, or these communication blackouts.
I am sciencing as hard as I can, sir. I assure you of that.
Can we like? Do we hear anything? Like, are there any emissions coming from the colony at all, or is it just completely like blank?
So it does seem that there is it seems like any sort of signals that are coming off are largely static. The One moment, I'm going to cough, and I'm not going to do so in my mic. Okay, so the signals that are coming from Alpha Centauri, or rather such that they were, have largely ceased. Any signals or comm lines that you attempt to open with them at this distance are just being met with static, essentially. It's pretty reasonable to assume that this subspace interference is probably artificial, given that no natural phenomena would explain it within the system. You, having read up, would know that much. So very likely either someone on Alpha Centauri if the governor may have control and is jamming, or the Tellarites are conducting jamming operations.
Got it.
Well, so it may be possible at this distance to find some way to break through. It would be at this distance, it's very difficult to discern how to break through their electronic warfare suite, but there might be a means of. I could probably essentially. Oh dear, I seem to be coming over with a case of metaspeak, sir. I could conduct a contested roll, or rather a hailing frequencies roll that would be at some difficulty, since clearly we are being jammed.
That would be prudent, Mr. Crichton. What is our current distance actually from Proxima Centauri?
So making allowance for speed of plot, I'm going to say that you're probably within a couple days of you're within a couple days at the point the scene is taking place.
Okay.
So that's Crichton did say that it was probably more optimal to do so from directly in the system, but he could still try to get through via subspace radio. That's at uh, at interstellar distances, subspace communications are the most reliable way to get through. Or an EM signal is going to take years, or well, yeah, still years at the point that you are at.
Okay. He's gonna. So Patel is like sort of thinking to himself. He takes a moment. He leans back against the railing and puts his hand up on his chin and thinks about it for a second. And then he says, "Ensign, I have a silly idea. So, what if during your attempt to raise the colony or to your meta speak that you just gave me, what if we had the computer running in the background attempting to change the frequencies, the receiving frequencies on the ship? I mean, the computer can do these things thousands of times per second." And eventually, hopefully, stumbling upon something that can penetrate through the interference. Does that make sense to you in some way?
I think I understand. Trying to rotate along a comm frequency that they might not be jamming, or perhaps they themselves are using, or even wouldn't think of, and break through by that means.
It's like hitting the scan button on your car.
That might be possible, sir. I will definitely try to give it my best go. And
My
with go ahead.
my meta thinking there was that I have technical expertise,
Hmm.
which would be a task done by the ship's computers.
Indeed, if memory serves, that allows for what is it? A bonus D20 here.
I may reroll 1d20, and
Okay.
it may be the ship's die that I reroll too.
Okay. I am going to say then. How about I I think this would be more properly an engineering task, but since you are using some, I'm going to say that with some alternate insights, I will give you science, or very specifically a control and science task in order to help set a sort of rotating, a program for a rotating frequency that you would modulate the subspace comms on, and I will let you take the roll there. Or this will be still a difficulty 3 roll, but you will get an assist both from Crichton and also from the ship.
I'm also going to burn a momentum to get an extra dude.
Sounds
It's
good.
one momentum for an extra die, right?
Correct.
Okay. Boom.
All right.
Didn't even need the reroll.
Oh, nicely done. And I accidentally rolled too many dice, but I'm just going to say that that is that is a 0 from Crichton either way. Um, I will also ask if anyone wants to roll for the ship.
I'll go on, I'll do it.
Okay. That should be communications plus engineering.
Communication plus engineering. Nothing.
Okay then. So the the signal does whine a little bit more as like you get a bit of static, and there it persists for a good stretch of time, but there's a very slight breakthrough. There's a very slight breakthrough to where you are starting to get what seems to be some sort of chatter. Creighton obviously has an earpiece. He pushes it in and tries to boost the gain a little bit. Sure,
I imagine we both have the earpiece, and just because it was the success came just from me and not from the communication. Like maybe I did the Jodie Foster in Contact thing, where like I also heard it in my earpiece and I turned it back.
Spectacular.
Go back to that frequency.
Adjusting now. The channel gets through very slightly, and you hear. Governor is announcing a curfew to be observed at 2100 local time. All residents are advised to remain in their shelters and not interfere with the Tellarite patrols.
Ensign, are we recording this?
Yes, I do have this. The recording is indeed on. Creighton moves through his Streamlab setup. Yes, we are definitely recording. And streaming live to the audience.
Excellent.
Creighton really needs to be seen about that meta speak.
Ensign, is this this sounds like it's a public broadcast of some type? Are we getting anything else from Proxima Centauri, or is it only this this specific channel?
Well, it seems that so as far as direct signals from Proxima, that's the only one I can definitely make out coming from inside the system. There are a couple subspace signals, it seems, from outside as well. There are freighters apparently that may be in the local area. I can make out at least a few transponders from Earth vessels that I'm sorry, I should have updated you on this, sir. As soon as the situation became clear, Starfleet ordered an immediate halt on civilian traffic to Alpha Centauri, but a lot of the Earth freighters that are already there, well, they can only proceed at warp 1.8. That's still a fair bit of travel, so that being the nearest port, they simply came to all stop outside the system.
Are all of them proceeding to Proxima, or are any of them coming from Proxima?
The only ones that stopped were the Proxima-bound freighters, and they're the only ones I can currently see. That and, well, hang on there. There does seem to be one other signal. It doesn't conform to a Earth transponder. I believe it's an Ithanite signal, sir.
Ithanite. I'm just going to say that Patel's not familiar with the species.
If you would like to drop one momentum, I would be willing to let you obtain that information and learn a little bit more.
Yep.
Okay. So for one momentum, you spend the point to obtain information and go through the ship's computers very quickly. The Ithanites are one of a handful of species that Earth has made contact with and exchanged some diplomatic logs. They are a very diminutive species, coming in at about, on average, 3'8", maybe 4 feet tall in some cases. But and generally of more of a like varying hues, tending towards some bronze, some silverish, kind of quite the spectrum there. They are most famously some of the largest traders in the sector. They have a very strong merchant relationship with Earth, and they are also noted as trending towards some hedonistic tendencies. Let it be said that the diplomatic junket that occasionally makes its way to Ithan is consistently well fed. They are not for want of anything there. But yes, they are are generally a very pleasant bunch. They have a reasonable merchant marine and smallish planetary defense fleet. Generally speaking, they aren't in. They are on very good terms with Earth and try to do so with everyone else. They're not exactly a power player, let's say.
Can we tell how long ago they left Proxima Centauri based on like their speed and trajectory?
They should be there about 9 hours after we arrive at our current course and speed.
Interesting. Patel's gonna note this and bring it up with the captain the next time he's on the bridge.
Gotcha.
Thinking that this independent ship that is ostensibly still going to be allowed in the system is going to be showing up 9 hours after we do. Wondering if maybe we can hide behind them somehow in their impulse trail.
Interesting ideas. So
that's May to speak.
Yes, of course. So we'll follow that up. Is there anything else you wish to do at this station, or?
I guess I would ask. So we're able to receive messages now, or at least this one channel from Proxima now. Are we able? And don't do it, but are we able to send back to them?
It may be possible to break through and send a signal to them, but if we do, the Centaurians, I'm sure, are going to notice it, and so will the Tellarites.
Understood. Thank you, Ensign. This has been excellent work. And I slap him on the shoulder.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the bit of reassurance.
I'm gonna go back to my station and pull up just like some library computer data on the planet and also on these aliens, the Ithanites.
Indeed.
And transition.
All right. And as you walk your way, the camera pans over to Dr. Lambeth and Lieutenant Shira. Who, let's see, refresh my memory here. You were trying to assess I have already forgotten what
we were looking into the Tellarites.
Yes, trying to assess.
That's a good plan anyway, even if it's not what we were.
Yes. The captain was looking to try and figure out anything that you could about the Tellarites, be it anything from their biology down to what you know, what you know about their other tactical advantages. Artem, if you want to chime in with any other thoughts that the captain might have had, then by all means.
Mainly I was just looking for like information on their technology, their anything, any further analysis of their culture. It's mentioned that they were looking for that they might be looking for good business opportunities, just the information to back that sort of thing up. But I sent Lieutenant Shearer there to help better assess their technology specifically to see if the worst were to pass, how much of a threat they might pose.
I see. So kind of the two of them might have been working together to kind of put together a full report on the Tellarites, and piecing together what what little information is in the databanks on them, and what Shira knows, which, as an Andorian, she does have slightly more experience, of course. So, let's see. As the two of you are setting to work, compiling a little bit of data, then, is there any particular area you would like to try and focus on?
I'd like to focus on ship capabilities and the general tactics when it comes to conflict.
Okay. This would probably be more of a role just for Shira, since this is you largely going back to recall intelligence briefings and probably some academy simulations. things from previous days. Less for Dr. Lambeth to do on that, although if you just want to make conversation whilst Shira does this, then by all means.
Yeah, 'cause I imagine he's probably met a couple of Tellarites in his travels, but obviously has no idea about their military or anything like that.
See, I've never met a Tellarite, but I've read enough about them.
Yeah, opposite for me. I've met a couple, but don't know anything about them other than the couple I met were arseholes.
They have a way of insulting everything about you, because they are I think that's more just their culture. They try to assess a person based on how well they insult.
Oh, huh.
So feel free to insult them whenever you meet them. That's what they're expecting.
Don't worry, you didn't need to tell me to feel free. I was going to do that already.
Good, You're getting right into the spirit of it. When on Tellar, throw insults around with liberal plenty.
As you were thinking about this, give me a reason plus security roll. Going to set the difficulty on this task to 2.
I would like to. I would like to buy a moment. I would like to buy an extra dice with a momentum because I don't think I've got anything here which is gonna give me a focus.
Fair enough.
I mean, technically, I do have bold security.
You do have.
Could give you a threat for it. And it would get me a re-roll too.
Decisions.
I like that actually. I like that actually. We'll go bold security. Give you a threat to get a extra dice.
Fair enough.
Yeah. See what happens.
Okay, that is 2 successes. You can re-roll that 0 there. If you want to get yourself a momentum.
It's yeah, I suppose.
It was a 19.
Hey,
there you go.
Okay, 3 successes total.
Alright. Undoubtedly, at some point in your undoubtedly at some point in your operations aboard the Kamari, there probably would have been tactical briefings about long distance Tellarite operations, and probably moves to deter them, and the possibility of confrontation. As such, you do recall a few details. Generally speaking, a deep space squadron would have somewhere in the line of probably 6 to 9 vessels, mostly cruisers, what they've designated the Prelim class, and as your memory serves, they are fairly heavy vessels. They're still in metaspeak. They match the scale of the Daedalus class, but they are very well engineered for. They're very well engineered for long distance jaunts at warp. They're also very well equipped in terms of sensor capabilities. The most recent set of Tellarite vessels had not opted for much in the way of torpedo-based weaponry, but they do have a considerable number of particle weapons that could be quite difficult to contend with. They also do have a shield technology, not quite as good as the Andorians, but something closer to well, they're still a cut above the hull plating that Earth ships are using right now.
So in a battle versus one of these ships, the chances of the Aegis coming out on top is not so good, would you say?
Well, in essence, it does occur to you that as you game out in your head kind of um, as you game out sort of what little intel you do have, engagements in terms of weapons are probably at their most even match at close range, as both sides are equipped with good short range weaponry. Um, at medium range, you do know they have some particle weaponry that could pose a problem to your ship, particularly when you only have the torpedoes. So either way, it's the Aegis would be less survivable in terms of like the absolute defensive screens that it has. Um, but this is a fairly hardy ship as you understand it. So it might be a little less fragile compared to some of the Tellarite vessels. If it were to sustain damage, it could conceivably keep dancing with them for a little while. For all of your reference, the rugged design talent is probably the major one here. It is a talent that does come with a Daedalus class vessel, and if memory serves, it does basically lower or rather increase the threshold for a ship to sustain damage or to be impacted by that. If memory serves, if a system is damaged, then you don't necessarily have to undergo the full repair task. There are essentially some redundancies built in. Yeah. Shira, as you do ponder the set of the likely outcomes of a fight between the Aegis and a Tellarite vessel, what would you say your expression suggests?
Uh, d- looking thoughtful, ponderous, maybe a bit concerned, antenna twitching just a little bit, while focusing down on the uh data.
Mm-hmm.
So, how's it looking? You find anything useful?
Well, if we were to get into a fight with them, and I hope not, but if we were, we'd want to get in nice and close.
Alright, I guess that's good to know. I'm gonna assume they're like longer range ships or something.
Oh, they also like short range too, but it's a bit more even up
With
close.
right, okay. I don't like the way you said a bit more even.
They have certain advantages, but the Aegis is a tough ship.
Yeah, well, here's hoping. I mean, I haven't been in that kind of. I haven't seen ships in battle before. I'd assume you have, right?
A few times.
Yeah.
I'd say could be worse.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll just have to. Well, I guess by the sounds of it, we should be trying to avoid a fight with these
Yeah,
guys, right?
I'm
But
sure. I'm sure this can be
I
resolved
guess there's
diplomatically.
yeah, or at least not in open conflict.
were you looking into the biology of Tellarite?
I haven't been, but that is actually a very good idea. I should probably check to make sure they've got the same number of hearts as we have.
Oh, I can help you with that. I do have a bit of medical training. I was a field medic in the Imperial Guard.
Oh, nice. Imperial Guard is like the Andorian, like what? Just ordinary soldier folks, or like fancy
Elite.
guard? The elite. Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd appreciate any help on that.
Yeah.
And
Happy to
actually,
help you research.
on that matter, I should probably figure out how your biology works to be sort of blunt about it.
I'm
Cause,
hoping the Imperial Guard transferred a few
oh yeah, probably.
notes
You
on
know,
everything.
Yeah.
I haven't been looking at my files and stuff like that. Like, yeah, I've just been trying to get the whole medbay set up. I should probably have a look at that. But yeah, again, there's a lot of information that I've been sent, and I haven't really taken the time to make sure I've got it all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, this whole experience is kind of new to me somewhat.
Shira's antenna just twitching concern here. Oh, you haven't been reading up on that. Okay. I'll just make sure I won't get injured before you've had your chance to do your reading, Doctor.
Yeah, well, I mean, try not to get injured at all, but
I mean, armory officer kind of goes with the territory.
yeah, I guess.
And
Well, I'll move
Just a few
your
few
file to
tips
the
on
director
biology
file.
for
Yeah,
Andorians, right? Getting hit in the heart, bad. Getting hit in the
yeah,
brain, bad.
yeah,
Losing antenna, really, really hurts.
but not that bad. Like, it's not as bad as getting hit in the heart or the brain, right?
No. They'll
Like,
grow
more
back
like,
with proper treatment. Just really
oh,
painful.
okay.
Really.
Because I was gonna say like it might hurt like losing an arm or something, but it sounds like it's just like not painful, but like I don't know, pulling out your hair,
I wouldn't
bit
be able
worse.
to do much if I'd lost one. I'd have to like go for medical treatment and all kinds of things. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, they're like a kind of sensory
Yes,
thing.
yes.
Because I don't really know what they do. Because I think
They do
you've
all
got
kinds
ears,
of amazing
right?
things, Doctor.
Well, I guess that's probably in your file somewhere. I'll move that up in the pile. I'll have a read.
does not seem like that much of a stretch to imagine, depending on his style, the doctor either having a notepad, a pen and paper notepad, or a digital pad, and just furiously taking notes.
Yeah, he's. I imagine actually he's probably not like furiously taking note. He's kind of probably like shorthanding a lot of stuff, just going right. Okay, here's like antenna important, and kind of like just a couple of bullet point things like that, and maybe planning to look them up in more detail later.
Spectacular. Well, with that, are there other things that you'd want to do right now, or that any of you on the bridge would want to do?
I mean, I guess I should make a roll to actually like investigate how Tellarite biology works, if there's
Yeah.
any stuff we've got on file for that.
Mm. So since you had met some Tellarites previously, that I would be willing to say that you are probably going off a similar recollection. This would be probably. Hmm, I know that medicine is definitely applicable, but I suppose reason and medicine would apply since you are
Okay.
recalling experiences, and this is you sifting kind of back through your mind a little bit to remember what you had to do treatment wise. Since you had this, you were doing it on a more informal basis, however, it would probably be more of a the difficulty may be a little bit higher, so I would say probably difficulty of 3 for this one.
And can I assist with my...
Shira, since she is able to offer a few insightful comments about, where to cut or shoot the Tellarites, then that
Yes.
probably applies as well.
Yeah,
Just
again,
aim
it's
for the
not gonna be-
beard.
Is it probably worth spending momentum
Get an
for
extra
this as
die.
well? Just since we've got 2, yeah, the extra die make it a bit
Okay.
easier.
You spend it to make it, and that is 2 successes there.
Damn. Sorry.
Well, it's not quite enough to fully succeed. But that being said, you probably had you recall Dr. Lambeth would have the occasional patient to treat that might have been a little more alien than what was the usual fare. So, Doctor, you would remember that that occasionally you might have to sort a plasma burn or tend to a few lacerations of a sort. Tellarites were not the most pleasant patients to work with, due to their uh, generously stated argumentative nature. Uh, though a few times when you could apply a sedative, that always made things easy. Uh, but you do recall they tended to be shorter individuals, but with a very hardy sort of constitution, thus able to. They were quite resilient, even when injuries should have seemed far worse than they actually were. So,
Okay. So probably don't know too much in the way of their internal organs, but I know what the outside looks like, and I know roughly how they respond to treatment.
yes, you would have an idea that there are some compounds that would apply between either species for, say, purposes of sedatives for treating injuries. You know what is safe and what isn't for that. So that will save you a bit of difficulty later on. Probably
Probably not of them going to have to do anything complicated.
yeah, a a more full medical scan would probably help you later on, and it would certainly expand Starfleet's database.
Yeah, because that's like, yeah, worth noting that actually Starfleet probably doesn't know all that much about the various species we're encountering either.
Indeed not. Yeah. So with that, yeah, you have a little bit of insight into what will go forward, but there are limits to that. Um, as you discuss as you try to pour over those details, Doctor, and as you and Lieutenant Shira discuss some details about what may be more harmful to Tellarites versus what might otherwise be safe. Is there anything either of you would wish to do before cutting away here, or anything else you'd want to say?
I think that's covered stuff on my end.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
All right. So, before we move ahead here, are there any scenes that anyone else would like to have in general? Or, if not full scenes, would you at least like to relay any information? I have already noted that Patel would have relayed to the captain the bit about the Ithanites.
Yeah, I also would have maybe shown him the recording of the little bit of radio stuff that we got.
Okay.
Remind me again what the contents of both of those things were.
Would you
So
like a full scene for that as well?
I don't particularly need one, but it was something. I guess my summary for him maybe would be that we were able to punch through some of the interference, sort of blocking communications with the Proxima colony, and we got what seemed to be like a public service broadcast or something like that about people having a curfew at 9 p.m. and citizens being urged to go to shelters. And then the information about the Ithanite freighter that's on its way to Proxima. The only other ship that we know of that is able to enter the system.
Okay. Do you think it might be a good idea to call like a staff another staff briefing? As we approach the Centauri system, to discuss the information that we have uncovered, see what we can make of it.
If you wish to do so, that is your prerogative. I am just as willing to say that if that you can have that information interspersed amongst the crew and or as deemed necessary, and that you can just proceed into the system from there, or to the outer system, as it were. Um, the staff meeting would be, as I see it, more if you feel the need to adjust your plans in any way.
Okay. It's just I was sitting here thinking like, okay, they're calling for a curfew and they're moving the citizens into shelters. Why? Like, to me that like that indicates like that's like some minor indication perhaps of some sort of like perhaps civil unrest. If they're calling for a curfew, which is being presumably enforced somehow, and they're concentrating these civilians together into shelters, like, maybe that would indicate to me perhaps Governor Slocum has less control of his colony than he is projecting.
Mm. These are all strong. These are all strong possibilities, and they do go to the point that you had all discussed earlier. So definitely something to keep in the back pocket. Um, would you
Uh,
want to pull the crew together for anything further on that end,
I,
or
I don't really think that's necessary. What was Commander Patel's idea with the Ethanite freighter?
Yeah, so probably just faster to do this. Like, since we're not doing an actual scene, I'll just
yeah, of
Right.
course.
do that out of character. So this like neutral trader freighter is on its way to the Proxima colony apparently, and would be there a few hours after we are scheduled to be there. But they don't seem to be like hiding the fact that they're going to the planet. Like, they seem to be allowed to. So could be an option if we wanted to approach the planet stealthily to maybe see if we can speak with them. See what information they might have, and then maybe hide in their impulse trail or something on the way through the system if we really wanted to go the subterfuge route. But I think otherwise contacting them would make some sense.
Yeah,
And
we could
if we want to go subterfuge, how, like, obviously Federation are our shuttles. Like, is that something that could be made to be slightly more subterfuge-y?
A shuttle pod would definitely be harder to detect, and like the markings on the outside do obviously bear some Starfleet like identifiers. The transponders probably consistent with that, and the Centauri are at least likely to know the difference. If the Tellarites were to spot you, they'll at least have questions.
Okay.
So are the Ithanites are ahead of us, right? We're gonna pass them on the way to the Proxima system.
Um, they might. So if you mean, are they slated to arrive before you? You are actually going to beat them there. I think that they have
No,
a.
like no, I'm asking like, okay, so they're a freighter, they're moving slower, but they're currently physically ahead of us, as in we could catch up to them if we wanted.
they're coming at the system from a different point of entry, or from a
Okay.
different vector, but you could intercept them very easily.
Okay. Do we think that that might be a good idea to like talk to them, see what we can find out about the local situation, see if they know anything else about the Tellarite, specifically about the governor, you know?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it makes sense. I'm also sort of like wondering, do we want to go even the sort of stealthy route to get into the system in the first place?
Why do you say that?
Because so if we talk to these guys, they're going to know that we're coming. At least the Ithanites will, and we don't necessarily know. I mean, yeah, we know that they're neutral, but we don't know if they would just give that information to the Proximans or to the Tellarites. Hey, we talked to this Starfleet ship, and they're on their way. That and like, I guess if I were Proximan, I would think, suddenly a stealth ship being spotted in orbit might not, like, it might seem a little aggressive to me, like the posturing.
Yeah, no, that
I guess it all depends on like what angle we want to go with when we contact Proxima eventually.
those were thoughts that I had. I think like the idea with approaching stealthily was to like hide behind one of their moons, like listen to their communications as much as possible, and then back out of the system, and then approach in a more obvious and like, hey, we're here, kind of way.
Okay, like intel gathering basically.
Yeah, just intel gathering first, um, and then backing out and moving in a much more open posture, less aggressive, low warp,
Cool.
Um, the point is, I guess the point is to gather as much information as possible from a position of not being detected, so that we have as much time and breathing room to gather information, and then we move in, more openly with the information that we have.
Got it.
All right, so let's see here.
In fact, we could go in and do our intel sweep, and then move out of the system to the Ithanites, since they're supposed to arrive after us. Go talk to them, and then we just we proceed into the system, just normally, without attempting to hide, really.
Indeed, so I think we are all on the same page as far as that plan goes. Are there, just to double check, are there any other scenes that you would like to have, either with the other, amongst yourselves or with other NPCs? Any other information you would like to try and gather before going in? Because otherwise we can start cutting ahead.
Yeah,
Hearing,
I think we could proceed into the system.
yep, hearing none, we will go ahead. So just make sure that everybody is where they need to be. Captain, you would be back up in the bridge spot. Patel, you would be at your station. Doctor, you are welcome to be on the bridge right now, unless you would prefer to be down in sickbay. Any preference? Oh dear, let me make sure my audio is not cutting out here. Okay, that should be good.
You're fine. I think our doctor's
Away from
Oh,
keyboard pause.
sorry. Right, no. Sorry, what was the question?
I was just going to ask if you wanted to be on the bridge as the Aegis drops out of warp outside of Alpha Centauri.
I think I might as well stay here.
Fair, fair enough. So some time would have elapsed. It probably would have been like the next couple of days, essentially, where you all in your own ways conducted preparation to make sure that the ship was in a good position to do this. At the
Wait, are we dropping out of warp outside the system, or behind one of the Alpha Centauri gas giants?
Well, I suppose I should clarify here, because you may have said Oort Cloud, and I recalled that. Did you want to do the gas giant that would be like in the technically in the system, but on the outer edges, or did you want to go further out than that? I just want to double check.
Well, the more time we spend on impulse thrusters inside the system, the more we run the risk of being detected. Are we getting like just as we approach the system, just from passive sensors, are we beginning to detect any ships inside the system?
There are probably signs of some EM signatures, but it would be very difficult to pick things up. So
Okay.
I would say that if you wish to drop out of warp by the gas giant, then or one of the gas giants, then you may conduct a sensor roll from there.
Okay. Yeah, I think it would just to minimize our time spent on sublight thrusters, we should probably drop out of warp behind the gas giant.
Okay. All right.
And then proceed along, drifting as much as possible.
All right.
To Alpha Centauri.
So we'll cut in then to the scene as the Aegis, now having reduced speed to a lower warp, is on approach. The engine room informs you that they have the modifications in place such that you are generating as low a profile as possible. And with your current approach, you are hoping that the Aegis's drop out of warp will be concealed by the gas giant's magnetic field. The gas giant you've picked is a Class J planet, slightly smaller than Saturn actually, but only very marginally so, with a bit of a bluish yellow mix to the composition of the atmosphere. Um, it is surrounded with a smaller dusty ring, one that has probably come apart quite a fair bit, and possibly has a few moons of its own, all well out of your path as you drop out of warp. Uh, which, yeah, we'll say that you close into here. And let's see. Sorry, lost my notes for a moment. Tackley will look to you as as you near the destination, and without going too far on the NPCing, he'll say, "We're coming up on destination, Captain."
Um, so we're dropping at a warp behind the. So as of this moment, we're dropping at a warp behind the gas giant. Yeah.
Yeah. I was
Okay.
going to give you the chance to say, "Take us out of warp, Mr. Tackley," or whatever you prefer.
Take us out of warp, Mr. Tackley.
All right. Yeah. He will oblige, and you will find yourself there. Um, the Tellarites are are generally in the system, so there is one task that they have to undertake. However, because of your stealthy setup, you have made it quite difficult for them. So I'm going to have them conduct just a very quick roll here. So that would be those for that. That was a decent effort on the task roll there, but still not quite enough. Oh geez, that was quite close. So you believe at present you are undetected.
All right. As we drop out of warp, Commander Patel, run a passive sensor sweep of the system. Try to identify any Tellarite ships closer to us, and plot a optimal course for for Lieutenant Tackley to take us to the outer moon of the colony without being detected.
I wordlessly wheel myself over to the little viewport thing and start beeping the boops.
All right, reason and science plus the ship's sensors and science, and I'm going to say that is a difficulty of 4 task.
Okay. If I can use the. How does the direct action work?
You used, I believe that
Ooh.
I believe I actually put
There's
the
a bit of mecha voice there.
Oh dear, give me one.
It's back to normal now.
Back to
Okay,
normal now? Yeah. Okay.
all right. Sorry about that, everybody. I don't know what happened there. But the direct action is actually in the player reference material that I provided you. So,
Oh yes, yes. There it is.
in essence, let's see. So you can use essentially your command and presence combination to roll as an
To
assist
assist.
on the task.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will do that for Commander Patel.
Okay.
Where's my character sheet? Hello.
And if memory serves, you do also have high resolution sensors, which will reduce the difficulty down to 3.
So
That is yes. It is.
between that and your assist and the ship assisting, and I get a reroll on the ship if it's using sensors.
Mhm.
I think we're probably fine without a momentum spend.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, we can. It's up to you. Like, I don't know if should we save the momentum for like later in the system.
Yeah, because we're still on the outskirts of the system right now. We're just trying to see where the Tellarites are to try to figure out how we can best avoid them.
Ooh,
Oh,
Oh boy.
so that
Well,
is
I'm gonna do my task roll.
That's
Wait, you get to re-roll one of them, don't you?
I can reroll either that one. Yeah, I can reroll that d20, so I'm definitely going to do the complication.
Okay.
yeah, and he needs to score at least one success here in order for the assists to count for anything. So
Can I spend a momentum on a reroll?
momentum cannot be spent for rerolls. However, you can
Oh
spend
boy.
your.
Okay.
Okay, I was going to say you could have tapped your determination there in order to re-roll the entire dice pool. Since I believe it was technical expertise you tapped there, or
Yeah, that was technical expertise.
okay, so yeah, that allowed you to re-roll the complication there, and that was a very good thing. Somebody may, of course, roll for the ship as well.
And I did roll my direct, and I got 2 successes.
I did see that. That is why you actually have all the successes by default that you need.
I rolled a 1. Very
Anything
nice.
else would be momentum, essentially.
What was it on the ship? Sorry.
That would
Sensors?
be sensors and science.
Woohoo.
All right.
Awesome.
And just to make sure that those rolls are updating here. There we go.
Okay, that is a total of 4 successes, with 1 narrowly avoided complication.
Oh,
Thank God
yes,
for
yes.
technical expertise.
Yes, yes, that's...
I
was-
the way I imagine that happening is because I like to do rerolls and stuff like narratively. I imagine like he accidentally grazed the button for doing an active sensor ping or something, and the computer
Yeah.
popped up with like "Are you sure you want to do this?"
And like, no, because an active sensor ping would have immediately given away our position. That would have been less than ideal.
Yes, yes. The badgy precursor was momentarily popped up.
Little clippy
Yeah.
little badgie popped up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It looks like you're trying to evade sensors.
Are you sure this is something you want to do? Okay. Awesome. All right, cool. 4 successes. Very nice.
All right. So with that, some notes are going to become available for you, Patel, in a handout that should be visible now.
Okay, Captain. And I'm not like standing up when I'm reporting this. I'm still looking through my little visor thing.
Right.
So it looks like I can make out a total of 6 Tellarite ships in the system, just on passive sensors. 2 of them seem to be patrolling the outer system, while the rest are directly in orbit of the planet. There's also several freighters. It doesn't look like they're Tellarite from what I can see, that are orbiting separately from the Tellarites.
Do the freighters appear to be Earth ships? Are they Alpha Centauri ships? What's going on there?
They are they are Centauri freighters in orbit of Centauri. Also detecting at the very outer edge of the system Earth freighters who are just sort of on standby.
Yeah.
And then
You,
the Ithanite freighter that we spoke about before.
yeah, they are still obviously at some distance away. I will offer clarification there. But that's more like you're detecting their distant subspace signatures, essentially.
And
Okay.
it also looks like the communications jamming is emanating from the Tellarite cruisers, not from the planet.
Okay. Which are there any specific Tellarite cruisers it's coming from, or just all of them?
I'm gonna throw up like a tactical display on the view screen, so you can basically see what I'm seeing.
Okay.
But I don't think I can tell if it's coming from a specific ship. Can I, GM?
It does seem to be broadcast among the ships as near as you can tell, so they're all kind of contributing to the effort at present. There may be a hub ship, but that is difficult for you to determine just with a passive sensor scan.
The two ships that I saw at the outer system, are they like on our side of the outer system or the other edge?
They are fairly close, and they're fairly close to your side of the system, and indeed it is probably by the narrowest stroke of luck that even with everything that you did that you weren't seen necessarily.
I'll highlight those on the view screen as well.
They could be on top of you very quickly.
Commander, do you think you could plot a course to avoid the outer patrols and get us into the Centauri moon system?
Patel tosses a look down to the helm and says, "Ensign, I can provide you with all of my data if that helps you."
Oh,
I assume that would be more of a helm task than
yeah.
anything that I can do.
Yeah. The navigator looks to Tackley, who continues to be mostly wordless. I will go ahead and say, as she casts back her ponytail, Ensign Sullivan, your navigator. We'll just throw up a photo here. She says, "Oh, I think that I could probably manage getting us around the Tellarites reasonably okay. That so long as the engines don't give us away, then well, we might be able to cope." She
Can I
kind
give
of
her an
grits her.
assist?
You certainly may. I will say that you may assist with reason and science as you relay that information along.
Very nice.
Okay, and I'll give her a quick roll here. That'd be reason and con.
Ooh.
Oh boy.
Oh
Oof.
dear, oh dear. Let's see. Her value doesn't quite apply, but I will permit use of a mission directive here so that she may spend a point of determination to re-roll the dice pool there, or at least her part of the dice pool. I don't want to punish you for a bad GM roll. Hey, that works.
Okay. All right.
She is specifically tapping the bits about you being able to assess the relative strength of the Tellarites so as to generate. You are doing so as stealthily as possible with the idea that even if you don't ultimately engage the ships, if it comes to a fleet engagement, then you want to make sure that you can come back alive with that information or not blown to pieces.
Okay. And I do imagine that doing a proper tactical assessment of the Tellarite ships would require more of an active sensor sweep of them.
It is probably going to require an active sensor sweep.
Okay.
I think as the ship moves on its course, I'm going to turn over to look at the armory console and be like, You wouldn't happen to know how fast those Tellarite ships can go, would you?
Is that
Nervously.
something I managed to find out?
I can at least tell you they are faster than a Daedalus class, but probably not as fast as the Kamari.
They'll be they can go at least warp 5.
I'll dab a little bit of sweat off my forehead.
All right. So as you fire up the impulse engines here and start getting underway.
What was the difficulty of the task to plot a course to avoid
Good question. Good question. That is, so I'm going to say that that would qualify as a plot course task, which would be generally reason and con, with a difficulty of 3. So you did in fact succeed at the task, and it will, in order to set this up so the way that this task actually works, you can reduce the difficulty of actually like getting kicked off here. So the next task that actually has to be done would be something where I shall roll for tackle here, just to kick up the impulse engines and get underway. Since you were trying to do this as stealthily as possible, I would say that that imposes an increase in the difficulty. Um, with the plot course task that you succeeded, you actually reduce the difficulty by 1 and can reduce it further for every 2 momentum that you spend, and you can do that for as long as you have a momentum pool, essentially. Or if you wanted to give me threat, that is also an option. Yes.
If you have enough threat, I think that's fine.
That's probably fine. That being said, with the successful task, you are actually down to 2 now, since you had the task would have been more difficult, but besides this additional navigational task, or the the charting course task, the engineering work that you did earlier, Captain, does make sure that the engines have lower emissions. So
Awesome. All right. Yeah. All right, Lieutenant Sackman, move us to the outer moon move us to the outer moon. Get us into position.
all right. So I will have him roll for a quick control and con task just for one final effort, but I'm dropping a threat to increase his complication range by 1.
Okay, and he does get an assist from the ship, right?
Yep, engines and con, and the power, which I'm going to say reset in the moment when you first entered the system, does go down from its maximum to, or like it cost a point of power to fire up the
Okay, so
impulse
we're currently
engines.
at 5 out of 6. Okay, cool.
All right.
So is the ship's complication range increased as well?
I believe it would only qualify for tacklies.
Okay. Ship always counts as having a focus. So engines plus con. Okay. Okay.
So that will meet,
Cool.
and the ship's engines will kick online, moving kind of along in spurts. It's nothing that you feel with the inertial dampeners, but the I would say that while it's not like the push of acceleration that you feel, actually, there's an interesting change in the cadence of the deck plates that some of you might feel as it slightly rumbles a little bit and gives the impression of a slight change to the emissions from the impulse drive. This, of course, all to keep you concealed from the Tellarites who continue to sweep the system. Um, using this evasive course, you hope to avoid detection from the fleet mostly. but they do indeed keep an eye out, so there will be one final roll here. Uh, Whereas last time you had the planet's magnetic shielding to help you, I am going to say that you do not have it now, so that...
Now we're just floating in space.
Yep.
Our emissions are reduced, but still.
Yeah, you have it. So to your credit, you have reduced power. You are on as silent a running mode as possible.
We're in submarine mode.
Yep. However, you are obviously not cloaked, because who even has a cloaking device at this point?
What's a cloaking device?
What is a cloaking device? And I'm just going to say that automatically doesn't succeed. So you will, since the main roll didn't succeed, their assist wouldn't have counted for anything. So you successfully avoid detection by the sensor net, and you proceed in slowly but surely, headed towards Proxima Colony under stealth to assess the capabilities of the Tellarite foe you may have to confront soon. And with that, I think this is actually probably the best point to call the session for now, since we are approaching 10 to the hour. So yeah, I think that this would be as good a place as any. I'm going to go ahead and say, just once again at the tail end, first, thank you everyone who showed up to catch the stream today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that you also join us again in 2 weeks. That'll be April 16th. We will be taking next week off, and we will be coming back on the 16th. You are, of course, welcome to catch up on the archive via YouTube. The video for this should be up by tomorrow afternoon. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing everyone again. For YouTube, this is going to go ahead and cut it out here. So I hope that you all have a lovely evening, afternoon, or whenever you're watching this.